Ciao, sono Sara Z dalla La Land. Incontrerò grandi ospiti provenienti da ogni parte del mondo. Quattro chiacchiere di condivisione culturale e linguistica per scoprire le loro vite e storie. Enjoy! Sono con Nate Chiappa. Allora, Nate, maybe some
Buongiorno.
people, you said you want to say something about your last name.
No, it's probably the reason why people
Yeah,
left
that's what
Italy, but
you say. Oh, I'm sure you're gonna laugh, Sarah, about my last name. And like, why? Because to be honest, even when I met your wife,
yeah.
and she said, my friends, some people laugh about my husband's last name, and I said, why? Because I didn't think about. Non ho pensato di ridere per il tuo cognome, però la moglie di Nate mi ha detto che i loro amici sorridono per il suo cognome e io sul momento non ho capito il perché. Why? Che cosa significa? What does it mean, your last name?
Well, it means yeah, we all know, most of your listeners know what it means. I didn't know until well into my 20s. So I
Oh,
knew
really?
nothing. Yeah, I didn't know the meaning of my name at all well into my 20s because my family left Italy 110 years ago. And so Italian wasn't really spoken through the household. So
Right.
I had to
So
learn.
where does your family come from? From which city? Which part in Italy? Da quale
So they
parte d'Italia arriva la
part south of Piacenza, so near where Emilia Romagna, Lombardia, and Liguria, kind of that
Sì,
in the
sì, so
mountains there.
vicino, near my city. I'm from Emilia Romagna.
See,
So but do you remember the name specifically?
Bettola and Travo are
Yeah,
the two
Bettola
towns.
Bravo.
Hmm.
Because now
Now,
I remember when your wife talked to me about it. Your wife studied Italian with me. La moglie di Nate ha studiato italiano con me. Mi ricordo che mi ha parlato di Bettola e Travo, che are two very small villages in very
yeah.
small, yeah, but they're beautiful. They're nice to
Hmm.
go maybe for an hour, just for a
People
little.
ride their bikes. Yeah, they
Just with
ride
the
their
bike.
bikes through there. Yeah.
Con la bicicletta per stare un po' in serenità, in tranquillità, perché they're very two relaxing places, not so many people around, beautiful hills and also restaurants. Potete vedere un panorama, il nostro panorama emiliano, le colline. E poi, so your parents are Italian, but you were born in the United States. No.
I was born in the United
You
States,
were
and
okay.
my dad was, and my dad's dad was also born in the United States. It was my great grandfather who was
Oh, I
born
see. You're great.
in
Bisnonni. I
yeah,
bisnonni. Sì.
yeah. So yeah, what's it called?
So bisnonni is
Bisnonni. That's it.
the
Yeah,
father of your grandfather,
that's
correct?
it. Yep.
Yeah.
And I did
Bisnonni.
23andMe and found that my people are from Sicilia actually, but they must have come through, come up to the north at some points
Oh,
long time ago.
maybe
Yeah.
for work. Sometimes
Yep.
people, yeah, from south go to north Italy for work, but that would be nice to discover. Because do you have this Italian citizenship? Hai una
I do.
cittadinanza
Yeah.
italiana tu?
See,
Sì.
see.
And
Yeah.
also you have
Italian.
two nice kids. And do they have an Italian citizenship too? Anche
They do as
loro?
well. See. See.
Ah,
Yep. They
però
also have passports.
Giulia, tua moglie, anche lei? No, lei no. O
Not yet.
no, yeah, non ancora.
Soon. No ancora.
Sì, sì,
Sì.
sì. Allora, entriamo nel vivo. I don't know if you know this expression. Let's get into the core, now I'm getting confused. Let's get into the live of the conversation, the core, that's what I wanted to say. And you are a great architect in LA. Why did you choose this path? It's on you now.
Sure. Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for having me too. So I think I've always liked building things. I played with Legos when I was a kid, just like my kids do. And every architect I know has played with Legos at some point in their life. But I think I really fully decided when after I went to undergrad, I was a philosophy major in undergrad, and I went overseas to teach English because I had no idea what I was going to do, like a lot of people in their early 20s. And while I was living in Poland for a year teaching English, and out there, I sort of traveled around Europe a lot. Did like the grand tour of Europe, you know, where you do the, 2 months
Okay,
around
let
with a
me
backpack.
briefly translate a little bit. Sì, allora, Nate dice che ha iniziato a interessarsi all'architettura giocando con i Lego, come fa ancora adesso con i suoi figli, poi ha viaggiato oltreoceano. You went overseas and you lived in Poland, you said?
Sì.
In Poland, which is in Polonia, giusto?
Polonia, sì.
In Polonia. E poi ti sei interessato sempre di più all'architettura. You got interested even more to architecture when you graduated from...
Yeah, so after I graduated, I went to a small school in Minnesota, and I got a philosophy degree. And I took one class where I really liked it was an architecture class about American architecture. And I really liked that class, but I think it was when I came to Europe and I traveled a lot and I started going to the great old buildings, is when I really started realizing that I was focusing on the details, on the buildings and not people and not food and not other things. I was taking a lot of photographs of architecture.
So
and I think that's when I started realizing it. Yeah.
Sì, sai, hai iniziato a interessarti molto di più all'architettura quando poi, when you came back to the US, right?
To study, yeah. So I was living there overseas, and
UCLA.
See. So I decided to leave Europe and come back and work on my portfolio.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I know if I don't translate right away, like I lose your thoughts. So, yeah, quando sei ritornato negli Stati Uniti, hai lasciato l'Europa, da lì hai iniziato a interessarti all'architettura, a fare tante foto agli edifici, e da lì è nata questa passione, from photographing all the buildings, the passion was born. And then you studied at UCLA. UCLA è una delle università più importanti degli Stati Uniti, ed è qui a Los Angeles, e hai studiato UCLA architettura, o you study architecture at UCLA. Were you 3 anni? Were you a designer first as well, or?
Yeah, usually everybody in school starts as a designer. Everybody who goes there has grand visions of being the next Frank Lloyd Wright or
Quindi hai iniziato a disegnare portrait, like regular drawings, like i disegni quelli di autoritratti o landscapes, paesaggi.
Yeah, well, UCLA was at this point, this was in 2001. At this point, architecture really went digital at this point. So very few people are actually drawing or sketching, even though I was doing that for the few years prior. Well, I was sketching my whole life, but really preparing to go to school, I was practicing sketching.
Yeah, so sketching is like, you were doing sketching in italiano, sono le bozze comunque, vero? Like sketching are like drafting, or are two different things?
Two different things. One is sketching, where you're doing very quick drawings of, you see something and you want to draw what you see.
Dei disegni veloci di sketch. Yeah, come penso anche in italiano, diciamo, fare uno sketch di un paesaggio vuol dire disegnare velocemente qualcosa. E invece, are you there, Nate?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, because you're fuzzy. Sei tutto annebbiato, non sei più chiaro. A little bit blurry.
Sorry, it maybe is I'm here.
Yeah, we don't see you well, but
really,
no, you're all like completely fuzzy. I don't know.
I don't know what I haven't. It looks like I have reception, full reception here. Oh, can you see me? I'm sorry.
Kind of. Vabbè, dai, andiamo avanti, non importa.
Okay.
Oh, now you're a little bit more clear. Okay, now you're back. Oddio, sei ritornato. You were like kind of like a monster. Not a monster. No, you weren't a monster. That was not a monster, but you were like all fuzzy and weird. Like, like Ghostbusters, like the kind of Slimer, the green. What am I saying? Che cosa sto dicendo, Nate? Comunque, Ritorniamo seri. Let's go back to be serious. So, yeah, technical, the drafting is more the technical drawings, vero?
Yeah.
Ok, quindi il drafting è più il disegno tecnico.
Yeah. And very rarely do people actually use pen and paper anymore for drafting, right? It's usually now entirely digital models.
Sì.
Yeah, even drafting, digital drafting is pretty rare at this point. So, and I went to school right as they were transitioning into that. So it was really becoming really popular, digital modeling and all that. So being able to sketch was not very important. I took classes where they explicitly told you not to sketch. Like the professor did not want to see a single pen on your desk.
Il professore non voleva vedere una penna, voleva tutto digitale. Il professore voleva vedere tutto il disegno digitale. The professor wanted to see like digital drawing.
Everything digital.
Everything digital.
No paper, no pens on your desk.
Nessuna penna, nessun foglio.
See.
In fact, this is interesting because when we had a brief conversation a few days ago, you are an architecture, but more like three-dimensional. Is that the technique you're using?
Well, so
because this is a new field for me. Questo è un nuovo campo per me. I want to admit it, lo ammetto. It's something totally new. So I'm sorry about my ignorance. Scusate la mia ignoranza, but that's why I wanted to talk to Nate and find out more per scoprire di più.
Yeah, well, architecture is a inherently three-dimensional act. You know, it's a way of it's a three-dimensional, as we talked about. It's the one art form you can actually occupy and go into the space. So it has to be effective in 3 dimensions. But the way you realize it outside of your head is you can actually model. You can build an entire building as a digital model first, and actually walk inside it and you can put on goggles, VR goggles now, where you can actually go.
So all of this you're talking about the computer. So usando il computer tu puoi entrare dentro l'edificio e vedere l'edificio tutto digitale. So how's the process? How do you work? How do you thinking about, for example, one of your latest projects, pensando a uno dei tuoi ultimi progetti? Com'è il processo? How a building is born digitally? Come nasce un disegno digitale o un edificio?
Yeah, well, it always starts as an idea, right? So you have to, and every architect works differently from my experience. Some will still start with a sketch, some will start with a model. You know, Frank Gehry is famous for just building, he's a famous LA architect, and he's famous for building physical models and just taking paper and literally just taking the paper and putting it on his forms. But it usually has to start with what's called a program, which is something that's usually given to the architect by the owner, saying, and the program is essentially saying, here's what I want, here's how big it is, I want these rooms or these spaces here, and these here, and then the architect has to kind of work around and figure out how everything fits together first, before they can do anything.
Sì, il proprietario ovviamente ti dice, cioè la persona che ti commissiona il lavoro, the person who commissioned the work to you, yeah, you can say that. And il proprietario dice vorrei il bagno qui, la camera lì, e ovviamente lui decide, e poi Nate, tu on the computer you start doing the digital work based on your idea, basato sulla tua idea tu inizi il progetto in base a quello che il proprietario ti dice, based on what the owner tells you. You work on but you don't do the model first.
No, you would. Well, some do. Like I said, everybody's different, but often it's at the earliest stages. It's easiest to work as quickly and fluidly as possible to understand. So that you understand what the owner wants and the owner understands what you are trying to give them. So if for instance, if you're trying to design in a hospital, for instance, where is the nurse station in relation to all the rooms? And so just moving those around, moving all
sì,
these
per
different
esempio, se
pieces
devi
around.
disegnare un ospedale, però specificamente una sala operatoria, un ambulatorio, ovviamente il disegno cambia. So like the hospital in itself is the general building, but then you have all of those little, excuse me, all those little parts inside the hospital that changes the perspective, right? Cambia la prospettiva del disegno.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
E per quali compagnie hai lavorato? Not exactly the name of the company you worked for, if you don't want to say or if you cannot say, but what kind of projects have you been working for?
Yeah, so my company, we're a big company. We're nationwide, and we work on 20 different types of projects. So we work on science and technology, on healthcare, on warehouses, on multifamily housing, retail.
Okay, so
pretty much about everything you can imagine. I've worked on, I mean, we're working on you know, warehouses. We're working on multifamily.
Warehouses like those magazzini, vero? Where you can find anything.
Well, so like it could be like a Costco or something.
Like a Costco, ok.
Yeah.
Costco, ok, diciamo in Italia non so se c'è, ma il Costco è un grandissimo negozio. È come il nostro, oddio, in Italia forse. I don't know in Italy if we have something like that, but you can find, and basically it's like a big Amazon almost.
Yeah.
Like kind of, perché puoi trovare di tutto, puoi comprare mobili, you can buy furniture, food, cibo, e qualsiasi cosa all'interno dello stesso edificio, e si chiama Costco qui negli Stati Uniti. E in Italia non ho idea. In Italia in questo momento I can't tell.
Someday, maybe they, I don't know.
No, maybe they might have it. I just probably right now.
Well, so yeah, but the Costco is one, that's the retail side, but they're, especially in the outskirts of LA or any big city, if you in Milan too, there are just giant warehouses that are just storing lots of stuff, that are logistics centers where 20 trucks will come in and 20 trucks go out. And
dove i camion, 20 camion arrivano, 20 se ne vanno, no, sì, posti
so,
di questo tipo.
Yeah, so they're not usually architecturally exciting. They are interesting as a problem to solve because they are very much about, they're like a machine, right? They have to work very well. And so you have to understand how the processes work, which can be exciting. I mean, it could be interesting dealing with owners who really know their business but don't know how to realize it in the physical space. They know how things are supposed to work, but you have to build a building to work.
Yeah, and you have to go physically to see the space where you're going to build it.
Usually, not.
Devi andare nel posto e guardare almeno la zona e vedere.
If it's a remodel, you absolutely do. Like if there's an existing building that you're going to gut and build in something new, you absolutely have to.
But if it doesn't exist yet, you don't have to see like where they're going to build it, dove lo vogliono realizzare, non devi andare sul posto, nella location.
It depends on how, I think it's often a good idea to, so you can understand the relationship of other external forces that work on the space. So like where are cars coming from? Where are the views? If like, let's say you have a tower of residential tower, where do you want to look?
Una torre, un building residenziale dove vivono.
So if you want mountain views, like if you're like facing the mountains, you don't want your bathrooms there necessarily because you don't have.
Guardi le montagne, non vuoi il tuo bagno lì che si affaccia.
Yeah, so to kind of understand those spaces and the relationships, it always helps to sort of go to a place just to understand the relationships of the things outside of the site.
But what's your favorite project to work for? Or what has been? Qual è stato il tuo progetto preferito? Or what's your real passion of a project? Like what's the favorite thing you'd like to work for? What kind of building? Like modern?
Yeah, so I don't have.
Ti piace disegnare? O ti piace lavorare?
Um, my favorite is the next one. I liked the challenge of a different type of project where you have to rethink the project type, where you're learning from the owner, oftentimes from experts, from your own team, because these are built. Every architect works with sometimes hundreds of people to actually realize a building. So if you're learning personally, I like to kind of learn a new project type where you're understanding new things. That's what keeps me interested, is like not doing the same thing over and over again.
Certo, ti piace fare cose diverse e ricerche diverse, nuove sfide, new challenges. And do you have a favorite architect that you like to look at online before jumping into a project? C'è un architetto preferito che tu adori prima di saltare in un progetto?
You know, I can't say that I have a favorite. I try to draw from as much as, you know, Eero Saarinen, who is a mid-century, you know, probably from 70 years ago. He always designed for the project. So he did not have a signature look, unlike somebody like Frank Gehry, where if you look at a Frank Gehry building, it's curvy, it's crazy, except for his very early buildings, it looks like a signature work. You look at it and say,
ho capito.
that's
Sì,
Frank Gehry.
Signature work significa, esatto, che guardi un edificio e lo stile, the style, you can recognize, puoi riconoscere esattamente
Instantly.
chi l'ha fatto, who did it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you are not in that trace of thought, like tu non sei su quella linea di pensiero, tu preferisci essere molto versatile. Versatile? Yeah.
Versatile. Yeah. Well, yeah. And just to understand what, often the project type will dictate the style, like will dictate the approach to it. So you could, you know, I really love Louis Kahn, for instance, which is a great mid-century. If you're in Southern California, you have to go to northern San Diego to go see the Salk Center, which is right on the ocean, and it's a laboratory.
What's
you would never know
again?
it.
Sorry, Nate.
It's called the Salk Center. SALK.
SALK.
Yeah, and it was designed as a laboratory, but it looks like this. It looks like a temple, like you would see a Greek temple almost. But it doesn't have columns. It doesn't look like an actual Greek temple. But the way it's sited, and the way it approaches the ocean and the sky and the sun, it is clearly a temple. But it's designed as a state-of-the-art, at least at the time, a state-of-the-art laboratory. So it's that type of relationship of understanding old architecture and the way it approaches the world and nature, and new requirements. It's that mixture is what can make a masterpiece, which the Salk Center is.
Oh, that's nice. Like to understand the. Can you say it again in English so I can translate?
Yeah, to understand the relationship of the building to
sì, di
nature.
capire la relazione dell'edificio in mezzo alla natura, nella natura, e anche in base and based also on the surrounding, right? Or what's surrounding. È basato anche su quello che circonda l'edificio. Questo mix di cose, this mix of things can make a building like a masterpiece. Questo mix di cose può rendere un edificio un'opera d'arte. Because you were talking about to go in Southern California to see the Salk Laboratory, right? That's the name. It's the Salk Laboratory. What other buildings are worth it to see if someone wants to come from Italy and LA? Not now because the coronavirus.
Not now.
But
I wouldn't recommend coming here.
no. Ma
someday.
Che cosa ci consigli? What would you recommend? Cosa ci consigli di vedere qui come very good architecture or architectural pieces?
Yeah. My first question would be to the person to be what do they like, right? Because the best part is that architecture actually can run, the architecture in LA can meet what your interests are. So we have very interesting museums, for instance. If you like museums, there are some interesting but there's like the Getty Museum there's two of them. One of them is on a hill, like this temple on the hill. And there's another one that's, what's that?
Su Sunset, vero?
See, oh, beautiful
Invece
sunset.
The other one is to go like towards Malibu, per andare verso Malibu.
That's the other one.
Which one you think is the best one? I saw both, but I like better the one, quello vicino a Malibu.
In Malibu. I would say it depends. For me, I think the sighting on the one in the Getty Center overlooking the ocean is unparalleled. The sighting, the way it approaches the site is great. But the way in Malibu, I love the new approach into Malibu. I mean, the building itself is a replica of I think the Herculaneum, like it's outside of Rome. It's just they just built a replica of I think it's called the Herculaneum or Hadrian's Villa outside of.
Roma,
outside of Rome.
È molto simile in effetti. It's very, there's a lot, like the vibe is very Italian, Roman.
Very. Yeah, except the entrance into it. So they've added a new entrance, that sort of an approach to make it sort of match like you would approaching the Parthenon, you know, where they sort of twist and turns, and it gives you views of it that are different views. So that's a modern addition to the older building. So both of them do some things well, in my opinion. I mean, you know, they're both pretty impressive buildings for sure. So I would say, to get back to your question, which was a good question about, you know, where do you start? Because LA has, over 10 million people. It's a giant city. Where do you go? And you need a car. That's the best way to see LA.
Avete bisogno di una macchina a Los Angeles, come sempre. Cari miei ragazzuoli, ci vuole una macchina a Los Angeles. Perché se aspetti l'autobus, Campacavallo, vabbè.
I would say, if you really want to understand Los Angeles, you got to get on the freeways, and you have to see some of the great freeway interchanges of all these giant freeways passing each other with all these amazing swooping bridges.
Le autostrade, freeway con questi ponti che si intrecciano, si intersecano, e anche il traffico, which is if you go at 5 p.m. I don't know, Nate, if you're gonna look at the nice structure of the bridge during the traffic.
I do. Well, the bridges are not, I would call, like, beautiful bridges. It's just this giant knot, a gnarled knot of freeways.
Ho capito cosa intendi, certo.
And it's very Los Angeles. It's just very much Los Angeles. But I would also say, famously, there's the Watts Towers, which a lot of people like to, down in Watts. So that's it's a unique, really just a crazy vision of the world that who was Italian, he was of Italian descent, also. Simon Rodia.
I don't remember the name. It was it was descendant.
Simon Rodia was the artist who built it, and he was I think of Italian descent. He's gone now, long ago. So I would say there's great houses throughout Los Angeles, spotted here and there in different neighborhoods. So if you wanted to go see Victorian houses, you go to Echo Park to go see an entire beautiful street of Victorian houses. If you want to see modernist houses, you can go into West Hollywood and see some of the masterpieces of modernist houses. Or you go to Pacific Palisades, which is by the ocean, and you can go see the Eames House. So they're spread all around, and it's really
spot, right?
Or if you want to see great modern stuff, you can go see the Disney Concert Hall downtown. So there's some great new buildings downtown.
What's your take on about architecture in LA? Like, do you prefer like more commercial or residential, and why? E perché? Perché?
Yeah, I think Los Angeles historically has really focused. If you look at what we did really well over the last century or so, we're known for our residential architecture, right? There was a lot of space. There was a lot of ability to experiment. Some great mid-century modern, like the sort of like lots of glass.
Yeah,
that
I see
style
that.
originated here, really.
See.
And so I think it's known for that. But LA lately has done some pretty good public buildings. So LA was never good at doing public things for the community. It's just not part of, it's a very American way of like, it's, you know, it's my stuff. It's my house, build it nice for me, right? But then you build a really nice house and you build a hedge so nobody can see it. And it's,
This
you
is
know,
nice what you said, like that you're saying, well, yeah, American people, not everyone, but I wanted to translate in Italian, I'm still speaking English. Sì, che Nate dice, in generale gli americani tendono a costruire e ad essere molto più interessati a costruire le case per loro stessi, più che edifici per gli altri. Cioè è un po' un concetto individualistico, right? It's a little bit an individualistic concept, right? Of thinking about my home, my villa, la mia casa, la mia villa, more than thinking about like building and developing a great structure for the others, invece di costruire grandi edifici o stabilimenti per le altre persone. Why do you think is that? Perché secondo te?
Yeah, why don't
under your perspective, per la tua perspectiva, opinione.
I think it's an American approach. I think it's just a distinctly American approach to, we don't, especially Los Angeles, we don't invest in public spaces. This is one of the things that I think when Americans go to Italy, they don't take back one of the great lessons, which is you go to the piazza and there's these great public buildings all around this great public space. And those are what matter. And those are what are substantial and have survived from generation to generation. And I think Americans don't think publicly. We don't think as much of a community as I think it's part of, I don't know, I mean that's a longer conversation about why Americans are...
Forse dobbiamo cambiare argomento, però è più, sì, è un concetto americano, più di cultura forse, cultural.
You know, it's some ways all our best public spaces and our best public buildings seem to be almost an accident. Like they sort of happen not by design, but just by somebody decides to build something, and or some cities are forward thinking at creating really quality public spaces for everybody to enjoy. But most of Los Angeles is owned and designed by developers who want their own, who need money, they need spaces to actually generate income, and public spaces, piazzas, and beautiful public buildings generate income.
Qui non ci sono piazze. There aren't any squares here in LA, vero? Or maybe in downtown, is there?
There is, yeah. There's Pershing Square, which is not great. They're going to redo it, actually. There's West Hollywood has an interesting public park. Santa Monica just built a pretty cool park near the pier.
Capito.
But it seems to be just hit and miss. It's not like it's almost an accident. It's not by it's not how we're wired as Americans.
Sì, sono nate, ne dice, queste strutture sono nate by accident, like come quasi come un incidente, ma non perché sono state premeditate. They were not premeditated to be built in that way. Ma sono venute così, sono nate così, per un po' al caso, randomly, for luck, per fortuna. There's a beautiful quote that you told me, che tu mi hai detto, if you take the American country and you flip it, everything falls in LA. Allora,
and you shake it.
Oh, yeah. If you shake it. Allora, se prendi, well, no, se prendi, ma let's say se prendi il paese americano, se prendi l'America e la shakeri, la scuoti, and then you flip it, right? E poi
if you shake America, everything that's not attached lands in Los Angeles.
In LA. Yeah. Why did I don't know why flip it. I like the idea of flip it. I don't know. Comunque, se prendi l'America e la shakeri, la scuoti, tutto cade a Los Angeles. Who said that, and what does that mean really? Cosa significa? Questo è chi l'ha detto.
Yeah. So I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that Frank Lloyd Wright said it. You know, a lot of quotes are attributed to people that they never said, but I think he did. And he built in LA. He was probably our single most famous, America's single most famous architect, and was genuinely, I mean, was a genuine genius at what he did. He realized that Los Angeles was, even in the 20s, was a freewheeling, Wild West type of environment that attracted anybody who wasn't rooted or grounded in their community. So people would if they didn't know where to go, they would just say, "Hey, drive west."
People were coming from the outside of the United States, or still be born in?
Well, also the outside, sure. So definitely a lot of Europeans in the 20s and 30s came. Sometimes they were you know, leaving fascism and stuff, and so they had to leave very quickly, and they landed in Los Angeles. We have great weather, so that helps, right? So if you want good weather, people come here.
Certo.
But it's also this. I think people who have this is one thing I've really think about Los Angelinos, is that they come here if they have a dream, oftentimes.
Certo,
and sometimes
la gente viene qua spesso se ha un sogno, vengono tutti qui a Los Angeles, certo.
Yeah. And so it's either there could be an actor or a comedian, or but it's not just in the arts or in it's everything. So I think it's that sort of rootedness or unrootedness that people come here and want to establish their own little haven, their own private villa, you know, as you said.
Sì, perché vengono, sì, or maybe you think they come for a dream, so they feel they need their own nest, something to be protected, maybe to feel more protected, because they have to be focused on their dream, devono essere focalizzati sui loro sogni. Quindi la gente che arriva a Los Angeles ha bisogno di un proprio nido, di protezione. And that's why also probably why LA is so, I think, very individualistic a little bit, like everyone think. Now that I'm saying that, I don't want to sound, I'm going to say mean or racist towards LA people. I don't want to, no, but it's true. And I felt that io questo l'ho provato anche io sulla mia pelle venendo qui. La gente è proprio concentrata, you know, this is as much time as I have here in LA, otherwise I have to go back to my other country, so I have to be very focused. So yeah, you need your own nest, and that's why probably everything falls like in LA. What are you working right now, Nate? Su che progetto stai lavorando in questo momento? Are you working on?
Yeah, so I'm working on a few projects. There's a high-rise building in downtown Los Angeles. That's it's a storage building, so it's
storage, okay.
Yeah, so
dove tieni tutte le tue
yeah, and then working on a couple of developer like office, what you would call like a spec office building. Yeah,
sempre a downtown.
Downtown or one in Pasadena. Yeah, so they're kind of all spread out. I mean, LA is as you know, is
as you know, yeah, tutto spread out, sparsa, cioè you really, that's why we're saying you need a car, because it's so huge, è così grande, immensa, che è proprio un melting pot anche di edifici, c'è la parte messicana, right? There's the Mexican area which is beautiful, then more Spanish buildings, a Spanish area, then more Italian too, where I live. Qui dove vivo io, Parco La Brea, è più europea, it's more European and Italian.
Sure.
But I think we are done. Abbiamo finito.
Oh wow, okay. We're near the end. Okay.
Sì, before I don't want Instagram. Non voglio che Instagram ci chiuda la conversazione senza salutarti bene, without saying a good goodbye to you.
Yeah.
And grazie mille, Nate. Grazie mille per questa chiacchierata e per le grandi e importanti informazioni che ci hai dato, for the information you gave us. Thank you so much. So check Nate Chiappa on LinkedIn. Un bacio.
Thank you.
Ciao Nate.
Un bacio.
Grazie mille.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Vi aspetto presto con un nuovo guest e una nuova storia. Join me! Baci e abbracci, Sarasela La Land.